keyword static in Java. This small word static has got high density. It has got a huge amount of things inside it. And in order to understand this small keyword static, there's a good amount of programming skill to be understood, right? So let me start. A class contains its member data and methods. It can have multiple objects where each object can invoke the members of the class. But some members of the class are unique. That means they have to be shared by all the objects. Those members are called static members. Objects cannot make a personal copy of the static members. If any object changes the value of a static data member, the change is reflected to all other objects. Now, this is the concept that I'm telling. The static members of a class are called class members and non-static members of a class are called instance members. And static methods cannot access instance members. Now, in order to explain it, let me take an example of a school. Now, you can see I have taken two schools as objects where the class is school. The class school contains all the specifications, all the requirements, rules, layouts, kind of things. And these objects are going to implement those rules, layouts, prerequisites, specifications, and only then they will be permitted to call themselves a school, right? Now, in order to understand the best way of understanding the school is every school should have a board. Board means the place from where all the rules are laid out. Now, when in the schools these examinations are conducted, there are certain variety because as we can try, if you remember our own school days from the schools, we had this. From all the schools, you can say that annual examination is supposed to be, has to be. Now, has to be means everyone will have to take annual examination because that is a requisition from the class that you have to have it. And when all of them are members of the same class, when these are objects of the same class, all of them will have to follow that. But when we come to the types of exams, this annual examination is to be conducted by the schools at their own convenient dates. But there is another kind of exam that is called the council exam or the board exam or the ISC exam. This board exam, when is conducted, then it does not remain fully as a private or as a property of the school. It becomes something which is supposed to be common or shared by all the schools. So when we look at this board exam dates, these board exam dates are not privately available to the objects. They are unique and are supposed to be shared by all the objects. But when it comes to annual exam, this annual exam is personal. It is close to, in fact, you can say it is attached to the object. That means static members are more close to the class, but non-static members are attached to the instances. Instances means the objects. And static methods cannot access instance members means when the board examination is getting conducted from the board, then the board, the council, the school controlling the class, how can they specify the annual exam date for any one of the school? Because whenever they will give any instruction, that will have to be shared by all the objects. So some of the data are for the object and some of them are for all the objects to share. Now, in order to explain this via the program, let me show you the program which is behind the screen. Let me see that. Here it comes. Right. Now it might look a bit of a kind of difficult. It may in the beginning, but wait. You can just pause the video and give it a look. Slowly it will become easy to understand. Right. So here what I see is there is a class which is named school. It has got member data. One is school name, which is instance, and one is the board name. The board name is supposed to be common to all the objects. And there is annual exam dates and there is ISC exam dates. Right? And here is a constructor which is assigning one value to the school name and one value to the board name. Right? And there is this display. The display is just displaying the member data, whatever are the data, right? And this modify, I have taken two modify methods. One is to modify the annual exam dates and one is to modify the ISC exam dates, because I want to show you how the data access is happening, how the uniqueness of the data is happening. Now, modify annual is working on the local data, hence it is a normal method, instance method. But modify ISC is trying to modify the data which is common to all the objects, the data which is static. Here the rule is, the structure is, in order to change the static data, you also have to be static yourself as a method. If a method wants to change the static data, that means that method is not going to work specifically for some object. Like if it is local to one of the object, then what happens is that object changes the common data and others don't even get to know that. Right? When I run the program, you will be able to follow. Now in main, there is one method display which is displaying direct values and one method called display which is printing them after the modification is done. And now turn to making of the object. Now this is BlueJ screen where the object can be made from the project window from the class. That is the class representation in the yellow box. And here comes the constructor. The constructor will expect the names. So the school name, let me give the school name as Central, and let me give the board name as ISC, right? I give OK, and here appears the first object. The object name is school1, and here if I right click and you see this modify ISC did not appear along with the object at all. It did not appear because it cannot restrict itself to any one of the object. It remains attached to the class. I'll show that when I make the next object. Now here display is there, modify annual is there, and main. Main is taking care of the whole work, so I call main. Look at the output of the program. Main is causing the first output which is display 1 which is printing the member data directly, and display 2 which is printing them after modification. So annual is getting modified with a change of 1 and the ISC value is getting modified with a change of 2. Okay. Now I am going to create the second object. This time you see, if I call modify ISC from here, then those data will get changed for every object, right? I will do that later. Before that, let me call for the second object. Let me name it, that was Central, let me name it National School, and let the board be ICSE. Okay, when I will click on OK, now just give a little bit of focus on which type of data which one is. Here also you see modify ISC's option only did not come. That is because modify ISC cannot let itself happen with any one of the object. It has to happen for all the objects. Now let me call main. In main, you will find modify annual is modifying the annual members, and modify ISC is modifying the members of the ISC data. That was the static data. Now display 1 this time, that is, this is the output of the second object, right? Where the name is national and the board is ICSE. Again, the name is national and the board is ICSE, and modification, see, it is beginning with 15. 15 was the starting value. Let me show you the starting value of both, right? 15 is the starting value, but where did 10 go? 10 was the starting value of that. It is not so, because the value is common to all the objects. This is very important for you to note. The value ISC date is common to all the objects, and that is why 10, which had become 12, is staying on and is getting converted to 14. Now you see, the central was local, this name, the school name was local, and the board name was string, that was common to all. Let me call the first object's main once again. When I will call this, what are you expecting? You have not done any other change, so you will expect the values to retain. Let me show you what is happening to the third set. Here is the third set of output, which is coming after the first set. You see, display 1 for the third time is supposed to show, but notice it. Central stays central. This did not change, but the board name has become something else which was not in the beginning. Here, this is the values which it left with. ISC was the last value in board name under the first object, but since that was static, means common to all the objects from the behind, when the second object changed it, the change stayed on. Same as with the values, you see, it left annual date with 16/4/2013. So the 16/4/2013 is staying on. That has not come from here. But it left ISC date with 12, and that has become 14. So the changes are taking place from this 16 and this 14 are the last set of values of both of them, right? But this 16 is staying 16. Even if you want me to show you once again, I think that will help you. If I come to the class and if I call modify, if I call modify, then only the modify has occurred. Now if I run the first, you see what will happen. If I call the first object's main, you see central and ICSE, and if I call the second object's main, there you will again find modification taking place. Just check out. You see which is changing in which order. Display 2, display 1 and display the second set, you see it is carrying over from its own previous value, but modify has caused a change, which is modify 2 means this one, ISC date. This is going on happily increasing from its own previous value. There is no coming back of it. Understand? If you want to make one more object, you can go ahead and try it out. Slowly, probably, you will be able to overcome the confusing areas when you do it by yourself. Clue point is, one of them is staying close to the class and the other is going on holding whichever object is changing it, the change remains on. Okay.